Alright folks, so here's the last video on writing binary data to a binary file. The previous video I went over how to write just a simple variable to a binary file. In this video I'm going to write an array of data into a binary file. And actually, surprisingly, because the write function actually writes a stream of bytes, it's actually a little bit easier to write an array to a file, as long as you understand what consists of a file and how the bytes are broken up. So here on line 6, I've declared a simple array which I'm going to write to a file. Okay, and I am also declaring an additional array with the same size, okay, so size of 5, where we're going to read the data back, okay, and then perhaps in this array we may want to manipulate it or whatever, right? Just simple example, okay? So again, we start on line 8 to declare our file name, let's call it binexample.data, append flag, and binary flag. So all good and dandy. Much like I said on the previous video, and I explained to you why you need to cast this to a char pointer, we pass in the variable, the variable name of the array, cast it to a char pointer, right? And then the second parameter would be the size of the array, okay? And then we close the file. So essentially what we're going to have is when we write this, is we're going to have 4 bytes, okay, 4 times 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 times 5, so 20 bytes that we're going to have of data, okay? All right, well, now that's great. Now, how do we read the data? Again, a lot simpler in terms of code. You don't have to do any loops, okay? You can just use the read command. Well, we open the file first on line 14, right? We pass in the in flag, meaning that we're going to read from the file. And then we're going to call the read function. Again, we're going to cast this to a char pointer, and our buffer is our variable name that we created to extract the data into. We're also going to pass in the size of our buffer, okay, and that's it. That's pretty much all you have to do. Now, to prove that the data was actually read in, we want to loop through this, right? So I created a little loop from on line 18 that's going to start at 0 and then end at size, which is on my array size, right? And we're going to write out every single element. So what I should have with num array buffer, right, num array buffer, is the values 10, 20, 25, 30, 30, and 50 that it should write out. Okay, and then we'll write an end line and close the file again. So let's run that. And there you see, right? So much different than reading data the way you're used to it, where you read it from a loop. In terms of reading binary data, especially if you're reading array data, you really just need to understand how many bytes you're reading, and obviously understand what's in the contents of the file itself. Because as you're writing this data, right, I should know that every single byte that's being written into is going to be 4 bytes each, meaning that if I'm reading from a binary file, I should know that as I read the data, I should use an integer array, because I know that everything that got written out was from an integer array where each element is 4 bytes. Okay, so you want to stop mixing apples and oranges and just stick to apples. Now, there's many times that you're not going to know the data type in advance, so you're going to just have to troubleshoot and find the best fit in terms of reading data from a file. Okay, and you can use certain flags and functions, because you can move the file pointer up to a certain byte number, a byte offset. And by doing that, then you'll have a better idea of what's actually happening inside the file, because these files are not readable. So if you look at, the file here, you see that it's all binary, so it's not readable. Okay. Okay, so why write binary files, right? So binary files, sometimes you'll have processes that will not necessarily be opened by a human, which means that they don't really need to be readable. The only other process or element that's going to open the file would be another program. Okay, and it's a lot more efficient to work with binary files because there is no concept of formatting and parsing. So there's no extra step for the compiler to have to format the data to ASCII, and then obviously in the other way around where you'd have to read it from ASCII and parse it. So with binary files, it's actually more efficient to be able to read as a stream, right? Even you see it yourself, where if I wanted to write this array out, I do it in one line, right? I did it all in one line, and I read the data all in one line. If I was doing this in an ASCII format, I'd have to do the loop and loop through the array and then write each individual element. So obviously writing in binary, it's a lot more efficient because you're writing a stream of bytes, and obviously in binary, which is 10 times more efficient, right? Because the computer understands binary. Okay, so will you be using binary files? Yeah, you will. When you interpret files from another source, they may be in binary, so you may have to read the data in binary. Now, how do you know what's inside the file if you can even read it? Well, you have to understand the specifications, and if the person or entity is giving you another file, they must tell you what is exactly inside the file in terms of data. You're not going to be able to guess it yourself because binary is just too difficult to try and figure it out. So if you're getting a binary file from another source, they should give you the specifications of what data is in what byte. And then based on that, then you can extract the data into whatever data types that you want. Now on the next video, I am going to go into reading data, binary data, into what we call, it's a data structure that we're going to introduce. It's called a struct. Okay, and now you're getting into sequential reading, where certain pieces of data are in a sequential manner, and you'll learn how to organize data using structs. So I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope you did learn a little bit about binary files and writing and reading and how they work and the insides and outs. Okay, drop me a line if you want to subscribe. Please subscribe to my channel. Alex Louis here, and I hope you learn more. I'll see you on the next video.